the chat window to fill in the blank here. This is an activity that we used late last year. Some of you will have already had to do this little task, and your adjective, word, or phrase may have changed since you first did it, but it may not have. So please use the chat window to unfold some of the ideas that that you might have at the outset of today's webinar about what assessing students' Web 2 authoring might mean for learning and teaching at Australian universities. Just keep that running in the chat window while I tell you a little bit about the unfolding of our project from the middle of last year. Jeff is saying empowering, Alison is saying developing, Jim's saying critical. Jeff is now scared. Okay, Jeff. Good. I'm glad to see some diversity, and I think that's certainly reflected in what we found out across the sector so far, but keep those adjectives coming. This is a bit of an outline of what we're going to talk about during the rest of the webinar, and Jenny is going to help me out a great deal as we go through these stages of our project. Stage 4, produce and share resources. We're not there yet, but we will point you to what we've done so far so that you can access it and join in the conversation about how it goes from here. As I said at the start of the session, our focus is very much on pulling together practice knowledge that's already developing, pulling together the perspectives that are out there already across the sector, and not only in Australia, I might add, and I would like to say a particular hi to Bobby Elliott, who's been working in this area from the Scottish Qualifications Authority for some time now and has been a stalwart in terms of contributing to this project. But a very collegial approach rather than prescriptive or, single right answer for everyone. We're going to talk a little bit about what we found out from surveying and interviewing Australian teaching academics, which we did over a period of some months around September last year. We had participation from around 60 teaching staff who were using medium or high stakes assessment with their students. That is, they were giving students marks of some degree for the work that they were doing using a social web tool. And we then held a national roundtable to develop some of the things we found and ask some questions around it. We're currently field testing some ideas about good practice, and we'll tell you a little bit about points 1 to 3 as we go ahead. But I'd like to just pause now and just make sure that there's no one with their hand up who has a comment or question at this point in the webinar. I'll keep going. So the survey, where we talked to, as I say, slightly upwards of 60 academic staff responded. We asked a number of questions about, so what are you doing? What goes on in the way you are setting assignments using social web technologies with your students? The first bracket of questions we asked was a bit about the context. What discipline, undergrad, postgrad, how many students, how long have you been doing this, that kind of thing. I'm going to hand to Jenny now to tell us a little bit about what we found out there.
Okay, thanks, Kathleen. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can.
I seem to have gone back to the beginning of the slides, so just bear with me a moment while I find my place. I think that's right. So this table just gives an idea of the sorts of disciplines that the people are using Web2 activities for assessment. And perhaps it's surprising that the most common were humanities and education subjects. There were some from information technology, a small number from management and commerce, and we don't have science on this table, but there were a couple from science and a couple from creative arts. Sorry, I'm just getting used to this, all these tools. So here we've got the number of responses to the question about what level of study, and most were from a bachelor or honours degree. Number of students enrolled in the unit. Most were from fairly small classes with less than 50 students, but what might be a bit interesting here is that we did have a number of participants who said that their assignments were run in subjects where there were more than 100 and in some cases more than 200 students. So there might be questions there about the way that Web2 assignments can be implemented and used in larger classes, which we might find out a bit more detail about when we look into these findings in a bit more depth. The year the assignment began, most are fairly recent, 19 responses from 2009 and going back through the last few years, but we did have a small number who have been doing this for 5 years.
Okay, so another bracket of questions that we asked was about the mechanics of the assignment, once again, to get a sense not only of the design or the context, but what actually went on. You can see some of the kinds of questions we asked. And handing back to Jenny, here's a little bit about what we found out.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, the most common Web2 activities that students were being asked to do were wiki writing and blogging. We did have a number of responses to a number of people said that they were using social networking, podcasting, virtual world activities and social bookmarking, but this question and most of our questions allowed for multiple responses. And when we looked at the descriptions of the assignments in more detail that came up in these surveys, we found that there weren't many where students were being specifically asked to undertake activities like social networking or creating podcasts. In many cases, students were given a wide range of tools that they could choose from. For most respondents, the assignment involved students were given more than a month to complete the assignment, and our interviews with participants, we followed up the survey with interviews with 22 participants, and a number of them talked about assignments that involved ongoing and regular contributions over the course of the semester. So that could be what these people are referring to here. Estimated time to complete the assignment. Anyone have any questions about that? Where students completed the assignment. Most common response here is off campus elsewhere, so for example at home, but there were also on campus but out of class was also a common response, so that might be computer labs, for example.